I never thought a simple wrong turn could lead to one of the most horrifying experiences of my life. I was driving back from a weekend trip, the kind that's supposed to leave you refreshed and ready for another week of work. But somewhere along the winding country roads, my GPS went haywire. The signal flickered and I missed my exit. No big deal, I thought. I had time to spare, and the roads were mostly empty. Just me, the car, and the stretches of asphalt ahead. It was getting dark, though. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving only a faint orange glow in the distance. The longer I drove, the more I started to realize something wasn't right. My GPS was still acting up, freezing and then rerouting me in circles. I decided to follow the signs instead. That's when I saw it. A faded wooden sign with peeling paint, the words Old Mill Road barely legible. It seemed like a detour, and I figured it would eventually connect me back to the main highway. So I turned. The road was narrow, bordered by dense trees on either side. My headlights barely penetrated the shadows that stretched out like claws, and the only sound was the hum of my engine. There were no other cars, not a single one. After about 15 minutes of driving, I started feeling uneasy. The trees seemed to close in, the road narrower than before, until it felt like I was squeezing through a tunnel of branches and underbrush. There were no houses, no streetlights, nothing but the thick darkness and the occasional screech of some unseen creature. My heart skipped when I saw the sign up ahead. Another one of those old, wooden signs, except this one read, "Dead End." I slammed on the brakes, staring at it. The road continued for a bit before disappearing into the thick woods. This wasn't right. I had driven way too far for this to be some forgotten back road. I reached for my phone, hoping to pull up a map. Still no signal. I turned the car around, hoping to retrace my steps, but the road didn't look the same. The trees were different, denser. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. My hands were gripping the wheel so tightly they ached, and a bead of sweat trickled down my temple. That's when I saw it, the figure in the middle of the road. It was far away, just a dark silhouette standing in the center of the narrow path, blocking my way. My heart jumped into my throat. I slowed the car, blinking, trying to make out what it was. Person? An animal? Couldn't tell. I honked the horn, but the figure didn't move. It just stood there, unmoving. My mind raced. Maybe it was someone lost, just like me. I hesitated for a moment, then rolled down the window slightly and called out, "Hey, are you okay?" No response, just silence. I inched the car closer, but the figure remained motionless. Something felt horribly wrong. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but the road was too narrow. There was no room to maneuver. I was trapped, with this thing standing between me and whatever was beyond. As I got closer, I finally made out some details. It was a person, or at least it looked like a person. But something was off. Their posture was unnaturally rigid, their face hidden in shadow. My headlights seemed to distort their features, making them appear stretched and wrong, like they didn't belong. I stopped the car, my hands shaking on the wheel. I couldn't keep going forward, and I couldn't go back. The figure took a step toward me. That was it. Panic surged through me, and I slammed the car into reverse. The figure picked up its pace, walking faster, then running straight at me. I floored the gas pedal, the car lurching backward as I fumbled to keep it on the road. The figure was closing in too fast, far too fast for something human. My rearview mirror caught its reflection for just a second, and what I saw made my blood run cold. His face, it was all wrong. The eyes were too big, too black, and there was a gaping, toothless mouth that stretched impossibly wide, like it was about to swallow me whole. I whipped the car around, scraping the side against a tree, and sped off, my heart pounding. The road didn't make sense anymore. It twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the woods no matter how hard I tried to get out. Every time I thought I'd see an opening, the trees would close in again. Then the car died. Just like that, the engine sputtered and went silent. I frantically turned the key, but it wouldn't start. The headlights dimmed, leaving me in near total darkness. I could hear the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, approaching from behind. I didn't dare look back. I grabbed my phone again, praying for a signal. Nothing. My heart pounded in my ears, and I was shaking so hard I could barely think straight. The footsteps stopped right next to the car, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, a knock on the window. It was soft at first, like someone gently tapping, but it quickly grew louder, more insistent. I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the phone like a lifeline. The knocking turned into pounding. I could feel the pressure on the glass, like whatever was out there was trying to break through. Finally, it stopped. I waited, barely breathing, listening to the oppressive silence that followed. Slowly, I opened my eyes, glancing at the window. Nothing, just the trees and the empty road. I let out a shaky breath, trying to convince myself it was over. Maybe it had left. Maybe whatever it was had decided to leave me alone. Then, from the passenger seat next to me, I heard a voice. "Are you lost?" I whipped around, my heart nearly exploding in my chest. Sitting there where no one should be was the figure from the road. Its face was inches from mine, that black, gaping mouth still smiling. I screamed, throwing myself out of the car and into the cold night air. I ran, not caring where I was going, just needing to get away from it. Branches whipped at my face, thorns tearing at my clothes, but I didn't stop. I could hear it behind me, chasing me, the sound of its heavy breathing getting closer. Finally, I stumbled into a clearing. My legs gave out, and I collapsed, gasping for breath. I looked back, but there was nothing there. No figure, no footsteps, just the stillness of the forest. I don't know how long I stayed there, trembling in the darkness, but eventually, I found my way to a road, a different road, one that led me to safety. But I'll never forget the way those woods closed in on me, or the voice that still haunts my nightmares. I later learned that Old Mill Road hadn't been in use for years. It was part of a ghost town, abandoned after a series of tragic accidents. Accidents involving people who had wandered too far, down roads they shouldn't have taken. The locals call it the dead end. I wish I'd never found it.